Hello everyone, it's Suey here. Welcome to the channel. It's the beginning of a new year. So everyone's excited to do wrap-up videos sharing how their past year went. Today's video is about my favorite books of this past year, and I've broken them down into a couple categories because I realize I have read a lot of nonfiction this year. Many of my favorite books have been nonfiction. I should read more nonfiction, don't you think? I have 6 favorite nonfiction books, 6 favorite fiction books, and then 4 honorable mentions. So let's start with the nonfiction. My favorite nonfiction books, in no particular order really, just the ones I gave 5 stars to, are Becoming by Michelle Obama. This is her memoirs of growing up and going to school and all the opportunities that came to her that she took and ran with, and meeting her husband and his journey to the White House, and then living in the White House, raising kids in the White House, and all the stories, all the behind the scenes stories, which were awesome. Also really loved Spare, which is Prince Harry's memoir stories. That was a huge book, but I felt gripped by the whole story the entire time and found it really interesting to hear his behind the scenes of stuff that's been going on. I also loved Talking as Fast as You Can by Lauren Graham, who we all know as Lorelai Gilmore, if you are a Gilmore Girls fan. She tells a lot of stories about Gilmore Girls, both the original series and then the little reunion series that they did, and a little bit about Parenthood, which is another awesome series that she's in, and lots of other stories about the industry and the business. And then I also loved a book called Still Mine, written by my friend Elizabeth Vernon Taylor, about her experience having a stillborn baby daughter. It's gut-wrenching, beautiful, and powerfully inspiring at the same time. All of those things. You can find this one on Amazon if you guys would like to read it, but one on my list that I'm sure nobody's heard of. If that's something that you find good for your own life, you should totally look it up. Also, Shining a Light. I gave this one 5 stars. This is a compilation of little biographies about Asian and Pacific Islander people who changed the world. Really awesome, cute, beautifully illustrated book. And then finally, the 6th book, and probably my favorite of the bunch, Dragon Hoops by Luen. He did a kind of a memoir. I would call it a YA nonfiction graphic memoir. He was a teacher at a school, and he follows a basketball team during this year when they were becoming the champions, and he relates all the things that are happening with the basketball team to stories of overcoming great odds and connecting them to people, and just lots of, like, you learn the backstories of all the kids on the team, and he connects it to his own life and his struggles. It's all just to inspire you to keep moving forward no matter the odds, and to take risks and take chances and see where it takes you. It's really an awesome, awesome book. You guys, I loved it so much. So those are my 6 favorite nonfiction books. My 6 favorite fiction books are All My Rage by Sabaa Tahir, which is a story of 2 kids who have immigrated from Pakistan, and they're living in the desert of California, struggling in school and struggling with their families, and some backstory stuff that's not so great, and just their relationship, and kind of a coming of age, powerful, deeply moving novel. Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. A lot of people have this one on their year-end lists, both this year and last year, I think. Mostly because, not necessarily the subject matter, which is these 2 kids making a video game and sort of the history of video games, but more about the characters and the relationships that they have with each other, that they have with their families, that they have with their friends, that they have with their coworkers. A character-driven book that just makes you so invested in their story. I don't know how else to explain it. It's weird. It's weird to say that a book about video games was one of the best books ever, but it really does grab you and suck you into their life. Lessons in Chemistry was also another great read I had this year. We did this one for book club. Sadly, I don't think very many people came to book club that time to actually discuss it, which made me a little sad, but this one I loved and hated at the same time, but I loved it enough to give it 5 stars and put it on my year-end list. I loved it because of the message that's saying girls should be able to do whatever they want, that there should be no limits on what you can do, what you aim for. But I also feel like if you aim for and choose to be a mom, that is also a good thing. This one kind of makes it seem like being a mom is terrible. At least the character thinks it's terrible. She was a great mom, though. Some people choose to be moms, and that's okay too. That's all I want to say about this thing that just makes me a little bit crazy about this book. If you choose to be a mom, then that's okay too. I also enjoyed The Girl Who Fell from the Sea by Axie. It's a beautiful story based on a Korean folktale. I just found is a YA fantasy relationship, a little bit of romance. I just love the rich storytelling in that one. It was great. And then The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. This one, I feel like had a comeback this year. I feel like a lot of people were talking about it, even though it's an old story. I really, really enjoyed it, and I am glad to have finally read it. And I also loved another one by Sabaa, Tahir, which is The Ember and the Ashes. The book I had on my TBR for years, finally picked it up. It's one of those things where you're just like, why? Why does it take me so long to read these things? Why does it sit here forever and stare at me? And then I pick it up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I love it. I should have read it forever ago. So, and I also read the second book from that series, and now I have the third and fourth one right here ready to go, hopefully soon. It's a great fantasy, very involved, very page-turny fantasy. Intense, very intense, a little violent. I gotta say, I like it better than A Court of Thorns and Roses. Okay? I don't know if you can compare the two, but if you want a romantasy, Ember and the Ashes, better than A Court of Thorns and Roses. Okay? Oh, am I gonna be in trouble for saying that? I think that's my 6 fiction ones. These 4 books I gave 4 stars, but when I was looking over my list, I just thought, you know what, I really enjoyed those books. So I'm gonna shout them out. The 3-Body Problem by Cixin, if I can say his name correctly. This one was food for a lot of discussion and thought this year, and I am anxious to read the other 2 books in the series. Hopefully I can get to those this year. They're on my Libby waiting, and hopefully I will have a time to do it when they pop up, because they are both huge books, really huge books. And these books are very, you must use your mind and your brain for these books. I just have to say, I really liked that aspect, and I liked that it was such a crazy science fiction story. So that is in my honorable mention list. Also, In Defense of Food by Michael Pollan. I really enjoyed this story about food and how it's not so terrible and bad for you. Some stuff is, all things aren't. And you should just pick and choose your battles with food, basically. The House on the Cerulean Sea, I really enjoyed also. This is a beautiful story about kind of being yourself and embracing your quirkiness and, yeah, accepting people for who they are. I really enjoyed that. I also put Crying H-mart on my list because that one was another memoir I read this year that kind of stuck with me. Another one that I had been meaning to read forever that I finally got to, that I really enjoyed. So if any of these books are on your list, get to them sooner than later. And I encourage you also to read some of the ones that you haven't heard of maybe. They're all great and all give you something to think about and will expand your world. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you guys all had an awesome reading year also. Until next time, happy reading. Bye.